So good morning, everybody. Welcome at home. I want to thank Building Holland for inviting us here to speak, and I definitely want to thank all of the people at Building Holland for making this a seamless thing, and the guys behind the scene also for great connection. I hope that you're having a good conference so far. I'm going to talk to you today about resiliency in our office environment and really looking at what have we understood from JLL over the last 6 months. Now, understandably for all of us, the understatement of the century would be that it's been trying times. But what is it that we see? What is it that we've learned? And what opportunities do we already start to identify as we're looking to start emerging and re-enter and reimagine what workplaces and buildings will be in the future? So, starting out, one of our stronger capabilities at JLL is indeed the research. We're quite well known for that. So we've been taking samples continuously of a number of our tenants and occupiers, and I'd like to share with you a little bit today of some of the results that have come from that. So, let's look at the positive and the less positive impacts of what people have expressed right now. I think, understandably so, less or no commute time has been really one of the key benefits that people have seen. The ability to balance their work and their private life and to create flexibility in their own day. Now, that's been something that I think that has been a bit of a learning moment for most of our occupiers. We see those results changing the more that we take sample sizes. We see them getting better, then falling back, getting better again. I think as we push through the fourth quarter, maybe as things, it will be a bit more busy as well again. So it's good to track those numbers. But for now, these are really the things that people are saying. And what are they missing? Well, what they're really missing right now is that they're missing that the office is a place of interaction and socialization. We see that the technology has worked seamlessly for pretty much all of our corporate clients. However, at the same time, it's not replacing the human interactions. It's not replacing those quick chats that you have around the coffee machines when you run into your colleagues. And then at the same time, a professional environment. Those are especially seen as for the people that are not necessarily having a dedicated home office. And interesting to see is that actually 1 of 2 of our respondents said that they did not feel more productive at home than they did at the office place. Now, that could be that they feel relatively similarly productive, but in any respect, 1 of 2 is saying that they are not more productive. And we actually see this, I think, interestingly enough, is it's coming mostly out of the younger urban professionals. Those were the ones that have reported that they would prefer to be back in the office more than others. And I think in the next slide, we'll talk a little bit more about what that has been and what's been driving those. First and foremost, we see 2 critical drivers effectiveness of working at home, and number 1 is the quality of the environment. It may seem, quite understandable, pretty maybe recognizable for many of the people watching the presentation today. The quality of the environment that you have, the ability for it to be inspiring, peaceful. Remember how rough it was when the kids were all running around before they were able to go back to school, and then that directly impacts the ability to focus at the home office. And then the quality of the technology. So employees with proper technology, 65% of employees with proper technology reporting that they are more productive at home than they were at the office for key tasks, while only 21% reported that they were more productive when they didn't have access to the right technology. So, taking these statistics together and looking at what do they mean is that we do see actually this shift in the central role of the offices moving forward. And it's important for us also as brokerage house, but also as a consultancy, as that's when I'm heading our consulting, leading our consulting teams and workplace teams, is many of the questions coming from our corporate clients is what is going to be the role of the office in the future? And that is without a doubt going to be an amount of collaboration. Very neat, some of our clients are saying that the office is really a hub of leadership and direction where people come connected to the tree, to the trunk of the tree. They understand what the company's all about. They understand what it is we're looking to accomplish and achieve over the next years. And then, they're able to execute as individuals and teams. It's also a place where culture and identity are created and fostered and nurtured. And I think that this is one of the areas that we've received a lot of questions about is that, okay, people are being productive at home. However, how do we maintain that connection between the people and the company? How can we make sure that everybody understands that a good corporate culture is being created and is thriving while people are working at a distance from each other? So as we look into this, we've actually started talking about, what would the breakdown of the office component be? And we've looked at and worked with this on a number of our clients. If you kind of look at, let's take it like Maslow's hierarchy of needs in its most classic form, the bulk of the square meters would be attributed to the individual workstation, where the individual and the human was central to what we did and how we designed and developed workplaces. And then we had, of course, meeting rooms. There were some other informal collaboration spaces, facilities like our canteens, like our coffee areas, maybe an in-store shop if you're a company that has one of those would be applied. And then, in between that, we sprinkle on focus rooms and the ability for people to kind of go into deep concentration areas. But what we actually see now is this really interesting blended space where specifically those activities of concentration, focus, deep thinking, creative thought, where it would have to be much more individually focused and not team focused, is doing exceptionally well at home, whereas that interpersonal communication, mostly along the lines of complex problem solving, are the things that have been, really much more, you require much more attention to keep those up to a high functioning level. So we do see almost that it's an inverted pyramid, where we see that the actual pyramid is standing on its point, whereas the focus in the individual can take place inside the neighborhoods, inside the homes, and we see much more demand for these collaborative capabilities, these functions that promote teamwork, that promote team building. We see that, for a great example would be training. We've all talked about the advancement of robotics and upskilling, the advancement of the training element, where it's me on my computer. I can do that fantastic at home. But where we actually have to do team engagement workshops, those are best done together as groups. And we see this as really being the re-emerging model that many of our customers are looking for. We see also some interesting things on demands for types of buildings. High rises with constricted cores are being a bit more challenged at the moment right now. We see that, split cores that enable much more flexibility, not only to partition the building, but also then in terms of access points. These are really, really hot right now. Mid-rise buildings, atriums that promote circulation not only through the cores, but also via stairwells and such in the middle of the building. And then we're also looking at these elements that we're calling, let's say, chambers and rooms. You might see from the presentation here that instead of these massive open floor plans, that there are some ideas and discussions right now that our design teams are having about segmenting off different locations and areas. And if, there is some, being able to much more easily contain, areas that are impacted by, a virus or something as such, but also areas that are actually bringing back how you actually have this small-scale collaboration and intimate interaction at work. And I want to shift gears a little bit and talk a bit now about sustainability. It's near and dear to my heart, but it's also near and dear to the hearts of many of our corporate clients. And what we've really seen is that, and thank goodness, is that sustainability remains a key topic of focus today for our corporate clients. It does remain an area of strategic imperative. Yes, the clients are in cash preservation mode. Yes, they're in the ability to say, how do I maintain continuity moving forward? But at the same time, they've not taken their eye off the ball over what their broader responsibility is, both to the society and to the environment as well. And this is a quotation from our global chief sustainability officer, and I think he very eloquently puts it right here, that our emergence from this entire pandemic, it really needs to have sustainability at the core of the strategies that we have moving forward in order to create very resilient economies and very resilient societies. And I want to talk about that in an economic sense. Now, I understand it's built in Holland, but many of the buildings in Holland are part of a global investment portfolio, and global investment is really driving localized action as well. So let's kind of zoom out and take that macro perspective. In 2019, which is the time that we have really the latest statistics, is that the global commercial real estate market was $800 billion. Just in 2019, it represented an all-time high, a record investment volume into commercial real estate. This is not housing, only commercial. And so let's talk then about the exposure and resilience that this is. And I recommend many of you to take a look at this organization, Swiss Re, the reinsurance company that are insuring insurers. Since the 70s, they have been really tracking in what's called the Sigma report, what the impacts to the insurance agency are on climate change and natural disasters. It's quite an interesting report because it really shows what is climate change costing our economies every single year. And what I'd like to point to right here is a scale from 1980 all the way through 2019. You see that actually in the blue bar charts are the number of weather-related events, where the line graph going through it is indeed actually the economic losses. And let's take a look at some of what we saw in 2019 was that actually yes, damages, many damages, but not really as bad as it was in 2018. So 146 billion in total economic losses was down from 176, and a 10-year average of $212 billion caused in damages by climate change. One of the interesting ones that I really see, of course, being a property person, is that 3.3% of property direct premiums were written off, and that's below the 10-year average of 4.4%. So understand that 4.4% of all of our property premiums are impacted by climate change. And so I think that this is quite a telltale sign. And what are some of the key takeaways that we have from this report moving forward? So number one is the insurance agency and a major global insurance player is saying the effects of climate change are very evident, indisputable from an economic standpoint. As temperatures warm, they're expecting these frequency to increase over the coming decades. The effects are most notably known, I found really interesting, actually, in these kind of secondary effects or of a primary peril. So think about a tsunami that's a result of an earthquake or things like that. That's where they're really seeing the largest effects of climate change taking place. The insurance industry does believe that the weather-related effects remain insurable. However, if we do not act right now, then there is an irreversible tipping point seen on the near-term horizon, which would really jeopardize and present high exposures and enhanced risk in global performance in terms of the economy. So the reinsurance industry really needs to track the effects of global climate crisis on what the risk is to its global investments and the exposure that it has. And so also what's quite interesting is that, yes, we've looked at the economic components. However, the socioeconomic elements are really critical right now because we do know that climate change disproportionately impacts the poor than it does the wealthy. So what are some opportunities that we see moving forward, and what are some solutions that we could see? Well, I would argue that right now the best solutions that we have for our corporate clients are those that create synergies, one where you can actually look at one type of investment having multiple positive impacts. And so where should we take a look at this? One of the first is that we do see right now, then this is very recent, the study just came in August of 2020, is that we are expecting there to be impacts on lower quality assets within portfolios, that those will be moved out of the portfolios. However, there is an expectation for an increase in investments in high quality assets. So I would say that where sustainability and where the future of work is aligned with quality characteristics and quality considerations of a building, then there is a real opportunity. So I would say let's not position sustainability as, a thing unto itself. It should be an indication of quality. It should be representative of a higher quality asset, which in many cases it already is. As you heard from the introduction, I spent many years in Park 2020 with the Delta Development Group, and that was essentially how Park 2020 was and is continued to be positioned, which was and is successful in these challenging times. Next, what are we looking at? The implementation of health and technology. So health and tech for the real estate market is going to be a big driver. This is what our global commercial real estate leaderships, executives of our largest clients across EMEA are actually telling us, is that 49% saying, yes, we are going to increase and make investments in the health and well-being of employees. That is critical for what we need moving forward. And technology really to get much more rich and accurate data about what is taking place within the buildings. You see that as many times about management of the buildings themselves. I think what we're really seeing is that linking this together with that high quality space, we are seeing some, let's say, a drawback of some space requirements. It's not drastic like the 30% of what we see being reported by some newspapers. However, it's a little bit more to the tune of around 6%, maybe creeping up to 8%. But even for those smaller sizes, a reduction of 6% could then be leveraged by a reinvestment of savings into things like health and well-being and technology, and that one would be a good example of synergies. So these are the main forms of tech that our real estate leaders of our big clients have indicated what they're looking for. Work from home technology, enhanced collaboration tools, commercial real estate performance and management. That's very much about how do we make investments into reduce the OPEX. So we're not only looking at capital expenditures being dropped in terms of one-time costs, but then those to be reinvested into how do we maintain lower running costs as we're going to operate and exploit the buildings. And the last is really looking for data science and how they can actually turn data into information and do so seamlessly and without, large costs. One of the types of examples, coming back to Park 2020, one of the examples that took place here, and I think that this is a very eloquent one, is the Plantronics Soundscaping, is that you're looking at an investment in technology that is has an AI capability and function. It is speakers that are positioned throughout the ceiling in a regular grid. As myself and some colleagues would be having a conversation, noise buffers would be created around us by the speakers going up in volume. They've elected then to, instead of have a white noise sort of that sounds like people from the 80s or earlier like myself might remember that after a certain time the whole television screen went out and that very irritating sound came on. We don't have that anymore. It's much more about what sounds are soothing, what sounds are enhancing people's performance and productivity. We see that connection in this respect to biophilia, in that it has been presented as the sound of a babbling brook. When they surveyed their people, that was what they wanted. And just for those that are curious, no, it does not mean that the employees have to use the restroom more. But actually what it does sometimes do is people are thinking that there's a leak somewhere, so they're looking for a leak, which is where this water wall comes into play, and that people looking at the water wall psychologically connect, oh, it makes sense, that's where the water comes from, we're okay, we're safe. So that could be a way. Acoustics we see as really the critical detractor of people's performance and productivity. And so investments in acoustic technology would really be something for health and well-being and performance of our people. And I think really some blue sky opportunity is to understand what does health and well-being and resiliency mean and sustainability mean at the home office. I think that there are a lot of people starting to jump into this field. I'm tracking it with extreme interest at the moment right now. We see a lot of our clients asking us to strategically help them understand what it means to create home offices, healthy home offices that are also of quality, while at the same time being able to manage the investments that they require in order to provide those ergonomic furniture, so on and so forth. So 10:59, 1 minute left to go. Right on time, and there's the 11 o'clock. It's been a pleasure to spend some time with you, and I look forward to heading over to the table right now and to answering some of your questions. Thank you very much.
Perfect getimed, Owen. Dankjewel voor jouw inspiratievolle presentatie. Je komt inderdaad naar de tafel toe. Laurens, ik denk voor jullie ook wel een herkenbaar verhaal als het gaat om creëren van gezonde werkplekken en omgevingen. Daar zijn jullie immers dag in dag uit denk ik mee bezig.
Ja.
Als je kijkt naar hoe het de afgelopen jaren is gegaan met gebouweigenaren en interesse hierin, merk jij dat er meer aandacht is voor gezonde werkomgevingen?
Nou, ik zie duidelijk een toename aan aandacht. Als je kijkt naar wat een organisatie kost, dan is dat 90% mensen, 10% facilities en ongeveer 1% energie. De optelsom klopt niet helemaal. Dus je ziet wel dat er grote winst te behalen is aan die kant van mensen. Ik denk wat gelukt is dat we ook een taal aan hebben toegevoegd. Je moet iets hebben wat verbindt. Nou, ik denk dat wel niet eens zozeer vanwege het certificeren zelf, maar als wel dat je een taal hebt om de gedachten erachter te kunnen begrijpen. Ik denk dat heeft geholpen. En ik denk dat het ook wat meer de focus op de gebruiker. Uiteindelijk is de gebruiker bepaalt de waarde van de gebouwen. Hoe goed of hoe slecht die daar gebruik van kan maken. En ik denk dat wel wat meer is doorgedrongen van een investeringsmiddel naar iets waar ook huurders in zaten. De grote verbazing tot het moment dat die huurders ook gewoon individuen waren. Die elk met hun plussen en minnen gebruik maken van het gebouw. Dus.
Ik ben benieuwd of dat Owen daar ook die beweging eigenlijk ook ziet. Welkom Owen, dank dat je wilde aanschuiven. Wij gaan door in het Nederlands. Dat is misschien gek voor de mensen, want jij presenteert natuurlijk net in het Engels. Maar ik heb me laten vertellen dat jij uitermate vaardig bent in het Nederlands, dus daar gaan wij graag in verder.
Nou, ik heb verhuisd in 2005, dus als ik kan geen Nederlands spreken, dan dat is niet fijn.
Oké, dit gaat helemaal goed. Ik stelde eigenlijk de vraag aan Laurens, als je kijkt naar de afgelopen jaren en eigenlijk de interesse voor gezonde werkomgevingen, voor gezonde gebouwen in het algemeen, is die wat jou betreft gestegen, ook vanuit de gebouweigenarenkant? Of is dat...
Nou, absoluut. En niet vanuit alleen die eigenaar van de pand, maar ook van de gebruiker zelf. Wij zien in ons request for proposals of RFP's die vraag voor well of fit well of in ieder geval een antwoord over hoe kunnen wij ons medewerkers gezond laten blijven. En wat is dan die effect van die investering dat we gaan maken voor onze mensen, dat is enorm gestegen. Dus, ja.
Laurens benoemde ook al wel, de certificeringsvorm voor welzijn in gebouwen onder andere. Maar ook fitness en dergelijke wordt meegenomen. Jullie weten dat beter dan ik, uiteraard. Zie je dat inderdaad een van de belangrijke stuwingsfactoren is geweest? Heeft dat de sector wel weer in beweging gezet?
Ja, ik ben het helemaal mee eens met mijn collega dat het stimuleert een conversatie over wat betekent wel en hoe kunnen we welzijn en gezondheid voor ons mensen. En het is niet alleen fysiek gezond voor ons lichaam, maar ook de mentaliteit en de vitaliteit van onze mensen is ontzettend belangrijk op kantoor. Mm-hmm. Dus wat wel heeft gedaan, is het heeft een soort van certificeringsmiddel. En onafhankelijk derde partij die gaat de cijfers meten en laten zien. Nou, wij kunnen jullie geven wat die effect van die beslissing dat je maakt is. En ik ben persoonlijk geen grote fan over dat de bedoeling is een certificering.
Het doel, het certificering als doel, het is een middel.
Ja, het doel. Het is een middel. En ik denk dat de conversatie meer belangrijk is, omdat qua innovatie, wij moeten innovatief blijven. Wij moeten absoluut pushen, de grens pushen. En je ziet vaak dat een certificering is. Nou, hoe kan ik een soort van reverse engineering, een cookbook maken van ik haal die punten
een checklist
en die punten en dan ik heb de meeste punten en het doel is.
Je moet uitkijken dat het geen checklist wordt zodat je ieder gebouw herhaalt. Ja. Je benoemde net ook al even kort de gebouweigenaar en eigenlijk de huurder, of eigenlijk de gebruiker. Dus de split incentive. Hoe doorbreken we nou voor eens en voor altijd die barrière? Want er zijn natuurlijk wat de gebouweigenaar wil en wat de gebruiker wil, dat zijn vaak twee verschillende dingen. Komt dat wel dichter bij elkaar? Of?
Ja.
Ja, ik denk
lastig,
het wel. Ja. Maar het blijft nog wel een lastige, omdat je... kijk, wat jij wilt is dat als je aan het touw trekt, dat iedereen aan dezelfde kant trekt en dat je een gemeenschappelijk belang hebt. En hier zit vaak een schijnbaar tegenovergesteld belang. Dat een beter gebouw, Owen had net een mooi voorbeeld van 2020 daarbij, niet altijd beter gehonoreerd wordt in geld. En eigenlijk zou je willen dat samen optrekt. En de kunst is om te zorgen dat die betere prestatie van die gebruiker, die productiever is, beter slaapt, het prettiger vindt om bij die werkgever te werken, hoe dat die beloning die vaak de huurder vindt, hoe je dat terugkomt bij degene die dat gebouw exploiteert. Want die investeert in feite en die ander die heeft het profijt ervan. Dus dat is nog even de puzzel van hoe krijg je dat samen?
Is het bijvoorbeeld ook eenvoudig om het bijvoorbeeld bij renovatie te doen? Omdat je dan een oude situatie en een nieuwe situatie dan kan vergelijken?
Ja, dat kan. Ik denk nou kijk, je hebt de bouwverbonden certificering van... we praten heel regelmatig over WELL, maar FitWELL is ook een andere type certificeringsmiddel. Nou, je hebt een soort van die bouwverbonden, dat is core en shell certificering, maar dan je hebt ook die gebruik. En in gebruik, je moet samenwerken tussen de klant en die eigenaar van de pand. Als je wil echt een goede, gezond gebouw, je moet de samenwerking hebben. En ik denk dat being a very good real estate broker, wat ook belangrijk is dat de huurcontract sluit aan bij de wens en de doelen van beide partijen. Dus ik denk dat wij zien ook green deals en dat staat meer en meer, dat staat in de huurcontract, performance criteria van beide partijen. En bij JLL, dat is voor ons een heel grote investering, ook van ons tijd en ons kennis over hoe kunnen we dat zo snel mogelijk en efficiënt faciliteren.
Jij gaf net een heel mooi voorbeeld over een thuiswerkplek. En ik zag een heel inspirerend voorbeeld. Dat zal ik thuis nooit meemaken. Is dat je echt in een hele mooie groene omgeving zit. Dat is natuurlijk wel iets geconstrueerd.
Maybe too much glare on your computer screen in that example, but okay.
Maar ik lees wel ook een vraag vanuit de chat. Is er al bekend hoe groot de bereidheid ook is vanuit de werkgevers als het gaat om het faciliteren van die gezonde thuiswerkplek? Hè? Want dat is toch een situatie waar we nu in zitten. Ik kan mij voorstellen dat dat nog veel verder van de gedachte afstaat dan een gezond gebouw maken. Moeten we daar eerst naartoe.
Nou, sterker zelfs, als werkgever ben je verantwoordelijk. Ja. Ook voor de thuiswerkplek. Dus, en we zijn pas een paar maanden ver met echt thuiswerken. Dus ik denk dat het zich nog moet inregelen. Ja. Maar als werkgever heb je daar gewoon een...
Maar dan is het toch al te laat. We moeten nu eigenlijk ervoor zorgen dat... En nu beginnen mensen de effecten eigenlijk te merken van constant thuiswerken. Dan zou nu eigenlijk... Ik wil het geen zegen noemen... Absoluut niet, maar het is wel het moment.
Ik zit echt te wachten tot partijen die gewoon als dienst aanbieden om mensen te helpen om een goede thuiswerkplek in te richten. Ja. Ik denk dat daar mogelijkheden voor zijn. En de tweede is, het heeft ook een beetje te maken met discipline. Want als je op je werk zit, dan zit je netjes in een goede stoel, scherm op de goede hoogte. Maar thuis zitten toch heel veel mensen, terwijl ze misschien wel een werkplek hebben, toch even lekker op de bank te appen of te tikken. Dus het zit aan twee kanten. Het is de werknemer zelf die wat discipline moet hebben om de werkplek goed te gebruiken. En ik denk dat het een enorme markt kan zijn voor een partij die zegt, joh, ik ga jouw medewerkers helpen om hun thuiswerkplek op orde te krijgen. Dus,
hoe zie jij dat, Owen? Is het nu tijd om daarop in te zetten?
Ja, I think, let me answer a bit in English, a bit in Dutch. Too late, okay, too late. I think that anybody that saw this whole thing coming, I'd love you to take a look at my investment portfolio and give me some answers, because that person would be much smarter than anybody I've come across. But, it's critical right now that we keep measuring, that we keep understanding what is going on with our people, not just one little snapshot and say, okay, this is going to be the situation, because just as we've said that this whole situation is fluid, so is too how fluid people's reactions are to at home. And I think that we need to continue to take a look at this will be more, this will be less, but indeed we really do, and that's why at the end of the presentation I really identified blue sky thinking, because nobody has dealt with the extent of home working like we have today. And indeed, we have a responsibility, physically and financially, to our customers and clients to help them to understand what that is and to do it as best as possible.
Thanks so much again. I think we'll close off in English this time, so thank you very much and have a good day here at Building Holland Digital.
Thank you very much.